There's over $1 trillion of Bitcoin. People don't want to sell it, but they need cash to do things. The banks and financial institutions are hungry to have new products and services that are digital in nature. And you're going to see in 2025, suddenly banks will be a huge catalyst of Bitcoin. How? I think that you're going to see
Hunter Horsley is the CEO of Bitwise,
the largest crypto index fund manager in the US. He's leading the charge in bringing Wall Street into Web3.
We've been in the space for 7 years. Bitwise has over 10,000 conversations a year. When I look at the trajectory of the last 7 years, what is the current moment? In 2025 to me feels like the end of the beginning, and I am stunned. 2025 is the best year there has ever been in crypto.
Bitwise raised $70 million. Why?
Public blockchains are a compelling computing platform. Public blockchains are allowing beautiful new things to sprout up and be invented, and they have liquid assets. That means that there's an opportunity for investors to own those liquid assets, digital assets. That's what Bitwise is here to do. And I think that there's so much to do right now.
How much of your liquid net worth is in Bitcoin?
A lot.
Do you own them in cold storage or not?
I own every Bitwise fund, which is a lot of different funds. We have a Bitcoin ETF, an Ethereum ETF, we have the index fund, we have some alpha solutions. I also own some spot assets. I have a lot of exposure that way, and it's a great way to have exposure.
So you worked before for Facebook, now you work for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is worth more than Facebook, about $2 trillion, but there are only 40 engineers working for Bitcoin, and they collectively get paid about $8 million a year, you told me. So that's $200,000 per person per year. What's the risk with this?
69% of the people who watch this podcast have not subscribed. If you enjoy this show, if it provides value to you in one way, shape, or form, can I please ask you a little favor? Can you click that subscribe button, give this video a like, and leave a comment down below? It helps this show more than you can imagine. My goal is to bring the absolute biggest and brightest people on this channel, and the best way to get there is to have all of us rally together and build the When Shift Happens family. Thank you. This conversation is supported by Jupiter, the most used decentralized trading platform on Solana and the largest DAO in the world. Castcard, my go-to card to spend my stablecoins directly with my Apple Pay to buy anything, food, coffee, or plane tickets without having to use a bank ever again. Bitwise Asset Management, the crypto specialist asset manager with more than $10 billion in client assets and more than 30 crypto solutions across ETFs, index funds, alpha strategies, staking, and more. 3. A scalable layer 1 blockchain that's fast, secure, and affordable, built by previous Facebook developers, and that delivers the benefits of Web3 with the ease of Web 2. To support this show, please check the sponsors links in the description down below. Yeah, I'm thinking about Luca because, he's the one who put us in touch.
Yeah.
The level of energy that you must have to run these, NFTs plus token that have crazy volatility.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's not tough. It's extremely tough. One of the things I feel that many people who join this cycle have, especially entrepreneurs, was crypto is easy. I just need to raise a lot of money and then launch my token and I make a lot of money. But the game is so hard. It's probably harder than a normal business, right?
Yeah, I think it's very hard. People talk about this all the time in the context of public companies, where management will have to navigate that every day there's a public share price that's bouncing around. And do they want employees to interpret their work through the context of the share price, which might be outside of their control, right? So 2 days ago, the NASDAQ is down 3%, and maybe Meta stock is down 4%. Do you want everyone at Meta to think that their work is not as valuable or they're as meaningful or as worthwhile? No. So you have to, I think a challenge for all foundations and labs and developers of decentralized protocols in the space have to figure out what is my North Star that is not the token price, because the token price will be an unreliable dance partner. But, that exists with public companies as well.
But they're much later in the stage, right? This token product it's like a startup that has a public stock, which means that by definition, the stock or the token will be much more volatile.
Yes.
And then you have this online community where you have all these people who are just angry because they're not building.
Yes.
They're not building. They're just like shit talking and they don't understand what it takes to build. And and
totally.
I'm thinking about, Luca specifically, right? Because we know him pretty well, but also
Yeah, it's so volatile and brutal, and there's not that many people in the space who have like really good values, right? And you just, even if you have the right values, you get put in the same bucket when your token or your NFT goes down, right?
Yep. Everything in this space is dialed up. You know, the feedback loop is dialed up, the pressure is dialed up, the volatility is dialed up. But again, it's not a dynamic that only exists in this space. There's public companies where they're building great products and services, they're growing revenue, but their share price isn't going up. And they say, why is that? We're doing all this great work. Customers love us. Why is the share price not going up? And vice versa. So in digital assets, it's dialed up. The token price moves a lot more. The feedback is a lot louder, a lot more aggressive. But it's not. This is not the only industry where that dynamic exists.
You're the founder CEO of Bitwise.
That's what I heard.
This volatility also affects you, and probably affected you a lot in the past. I have a bunch of friends who are trying to build something similar to Bitwise, right? But they're struggling just to raise the money, and it's extremely hard because usually people will come at the wrong time, as always. So they will come invest more at the wrong time, and then when actually would be the right time to invest, they're not interested. How did you navigate that to build what you've been able to build, which is more than $10 billion in asset today?
Well, I think that one thing that's kind of obvious, but people don't often think about that much in the space, is how important staying power and stamina and endurance are. And accepting that digital assets, people's interest in digital assets, is a story that is bigger than any one project or company. And that means it doesn't revolve around you or your objectives. And then the question that results from that is, are you willing to stick with it and stick through it? And sometimes the answer is no for companies or teams where they just don't have the patience or they can't hold it together. But I think conversely, it's a really it's sort of a hard but simple thing that if you just consistently do what you set out to do, that can also really be an advantage. We have a shareholder who sometimes jokes. He says, Hunter, my favorite thing about you as an entrepreneur is that every time I see you over the last 7 years, you're doing the same thing as you were the last time I saw you. And so, I think at Bitwise and for what we do, people want to rely on us to be a partner over a long period of time. And so it's essential that we just continue to reliably do what we're supposed to do through thick and thin, through exciting moments and boring moments. And I'm really proud that the organization has been able to do that. But it's somehow it's not obvious to people. And it's also not easy.
Yeah, that's the big problem in crypto, because there is all these metas, narratives, and people always need to get excited by something, and they really seem to not understand that building a business, building a brand, building a podcast is just consistency. It's kind of boring, right? Mm-hmm. Or, content creators, it's just like, are you there when it's good? Are you there when it's bad? Are you there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can people rely on you? And then probably other people who do the same will realize, oh, this is one of us.
Mm-hmm.
But the mindset of people in crypto, or I would say when I could talk about people in crypto, I'm talking about Twitter and all these people, is not like that.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true. These things can happen very fast. And I think because things can happen very fast, people expect that they will happen very fast. And that is, of course, just not always true.
I was talking yesterday with the co-founder of a small startup that I advise. And he's struggling. He's like, markets are hard. Can't we raise money? It's so difficult. After, I think he said something like, after 2 years, 1 year and a half, I would like to start to see some results. So I told him what I thought. What would you tell him? An entrepreneur who started in crypto a year and a half ago, and realizes it's much harder than he thought.
Gosh, advice for entrepreneurs is a very tricky sport, because ultimately the answer is that every entrepreneur should do what they want to do. And that results in some people sticking with things and some people not. And if somebody doesn't want to stick with it, you could advise them to stick with it, but that doesn't work if that's not their instinct. I mean, so what I would say to him is, do you want to call it here and move on to something else that's exciting to you? And if the answer to that is yes, so that's what's speaking to him, he should do that. And if he's like, no, I love what I'm doing, or I love the product we're building, or I'm fascinated by it, or I love the clients we're serving, then you should just keep going and stop thinking so much. There's a Paul Graham quote that I can't cite verbatim, but it's something like the leading cause of death for startups is suicide. And I think it speaks to this phenomenon, which is people wondering, is it not working? Should it be going faster? Do I want to be doing this? And so on and so forth. And there is a way in which that's productive to make sure that you're actually building something valuable. But at the same time, there's a way in which it's unproductive. And if you think this thing should exist, or you just love working on this thing, then just keep going. So I ultimately, entrepreneurs are sort of defined by the fact that they're going to do ultimately what they want to do. So advice is suggesting what they should do, which is sort of at odds with the definition of an entrepreneur. But if he wants to keep going, then I would, my advice to him would be stop thinking about it so much and just keep going.
Dear When Shift Happens family, the following message is probably the single most important thing you should take away from today's podcast. If you're serious about your crypto investing journey, please take some time to learn how to self-custody your assets to make sure that nobody can take your coins away. Ever. If you don't learn how to be your own bank, it is very likely that one day you will lose all your hard-earned crypto. The safest way to hold your crypto is in a cold storage that we also call hardware wallets. Hardware wallets are not complicated and they give you peace of mind. I personally use a hardware wallet called Trezor. It is open source, very easy to use, and the first hardware wallet created ever. As we like to say it in crypto, not your keys, not your coin. You can order your Trezor wallet with a 10% discount by following the link in the description down below and by using the promo code WSH10. And now back to the episode.
One of the things I told him was surround yourself with people who are optimistic. And honestly, I had you in my mind. Not in terms of, hey, if you go to SF, you're going to be able to have a hunter as a friend, but I call you Mr. Optimistic. You're always optimistic. And I mean, perpetual optimism is a force multiplier, but it's very hard to be always optimistic. How do you stay optimistic all the time?
Oh, gosh. Well, that's a fascinating question. I think that part of it is what you choose to focus on. And I am sort of in a fortunate position at Bitwise in that we have thousands of clients across the country. We've been in the space for 7 years. And if you're looking at 7 years of data points and you are not just having one or two conversations, Bitwise has over 10,000 conversations a year, then when I look at across what is the trajectory of the last 7 years, what is the current moment, and across these 10,000 conversations, sure, any one of them may not be what you want it to be. I am stunned. 2025 is the best year there has ever been in crypto. And if that statement doesn't resonate with you, then I think it's worth sort of taking stock of what am I looking at, or what am I focused on, or what is the metric that causes in me to believe that that's not the case? And why might Hunter believe that that is the case? And what is the different set of things he's looking at? But from my vantage point, 2025, there's a quote that my colleague president here, Teddy Vasaro, says. It's a Winston Churchill quote. It's not the end, it's not the beginning of the end, but it is the end of the beginning. And 2025 to me feels like the end of the beginning and a new chapter commencing. And gosh, I've just never been more excited for this space.
Let's focus on the KPI, on the correct KPIs, right? What should people focus on if they want to stay optimistic and happy in this industry? You said it's the best year ever, 2025. Victor Hugo wrote, There's one thing stronger than all the armies in the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. You borrowed Victor Hugo's quote and adapted it to our favorite topic, Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an idea whose time has come. Why?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I actually don't even remember that who the original source of that quote was. Sometimes it almost feels like the world is reorganizing itself to create the best environment for Bitcoin. So what are some of the elements of Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a digital asset. So it's better when the world is online. Bitcoin is a digital asset. So as people, younger generations who have more and more experience with digital assets, age and come into wealth, they're more interested in that digital asset. Bitcoin is a non-sovereign store of value. So the less that people trust governments, or a government trusts another government, the more useful it is. Bitcoin is an asset with a scarce supply. So the more people are concerned about inflation and currency debasement and the fiscal and monetary policies of governments, the more differentiated that feature of Bitcoin becomes. Bitcoin is not an inherently political topic, at least in the United States. And I think we've seen this year that there are Democrats and Republicans who've realized that this is something that matters to their constituents and could be a real blessing to the country. And so for that non-political nature to start being perceived by politicians in Washington is an amazing boon. So all of those things are moving in the right direction. And they're all sort of have been dialing and dialing and dialing. And this year you have this tapestry of all of those forces that makes me feel like Bitcoin's time has come. All of the circumstances that allow Bitcoin to be seen in its best light and its most useful nature are sort of conspiring around it. And it's not that Bitcoin has changed. It's that the world around Bitcoin has changed. And it's changed in such a way for a lot of people to appreciate its brilliance and merits. So that's what makes me think of it. And there's actually like another 5 more in the weeds set of things. I'll give you one more that's kind of in the weeds. In the US, banks have really struggled for the last 10 years. Through regulation and fines and a whole host of constraints, they have not been able to innovate. And so they're slowly getting picked apart. You have fintech companies that are taking some of their services. Think of SoFi or Robinhood. You have payments companies that are taking another set of their services. Think of Adyen and Stripe and PayPal. And then you have private credit firms. Think of Apollo or Ares that are taking a whole nother host of their services around credit markets. And so over the last 10 years, the banks have just been piece after piece is getting pulled away from them. But banks, like every other organization, wants to serve its customers and wants to grow. So not to be too long-winded on Bitcoin is a great idea whose time has come. But as another example of that, the banks and financial institutions are hungry to have new products and services that are digital in nature, that can be an innovation area for their firms. And I think that you're going to see in 2025, suddenly banks will be a huge catalyst and proponent of Bitcoin and digital assets. How? I think people are going to be blown away. I think that you're going to see. The premise is companies exist to serve customers. And when customers want something, they can only resist serving that for so long. And I think that the dam is broken. They can't resist it any longer. And in the new administration, the constraints that were preventing banks from serving customers around digital assets are falling away. So how are banks going to start serving the space? You're going to see lending against Bitcoin, where you can borrow against your Bitcoin, which is a huge feature. This is over $1 trillion. There's over $1 trillion of Bitcoin. People don't want to sell it, but they need cash to do things. So you're going to see banks stepping in to offer that. You're going to see banks facilitating derivatives and trading. You're going to see banks offering to hold your digital assets for you with the comfort of the regulatory apparatus and the history of a bank. You're going to see banks facilitating payments. You'll see banks embracing stablecoins and holding or accepting and transferring stablecoins through. I mean, I think that there are so many of the services of this space that are very native to what people expect from a bank. And I think this year you'll see at least 3 major banks start to offer services. And then on the wealth management side of banks, they're also going to start to allow their clients to invest in digital assets. And we're already seeing that, and we serve a few banks who are doing it. So I think that the view of a few years ago is that banks were sort of at odds with this space, and we're unhappy to see its success. And I think a difference in 2025 is that I think banks are joining the team. And are going to be a force that compels the space even further.
In early 2024, we had the first Bitcoin ETF.
I remember. Yeah, that was fun.
In early 2025, we had the first Bitcoin American president. What are we getting in early 2026?
I may have said this to you before, Kevin, but my view is that the space usually has one primary storyline. And to rewind to recent memory, everyone remembers the 2022 storylines, which I don't even want to conjure into this conversation, but people remember what the major storyline of the space was in 2022. In 2020, towards the end of 2023 and into the beginning of 2024, the storyline became maybe a Bitcoin ETF is finally going to happen. And then into 2024, it became how big can it get? Who's doing it? And then it transitioned to the presidential election in the US. What are the views? Who's going to be the nominee from each party? What are the views of Biden and Trump on Bitcoin? And then, Trump goes to Bitcoin Nashville. I want to say the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, and people are blown away. He's speaking to this conference. He says things. There's applause. This is the storyline now. What are the presidential candidates? Trump, Biden, and then Harris. What are their views? Who's going to win the election? And then after the election, and you saw the market really respond to the election result. The question was, okay, what are the things? There's a president, there's a White House, there's a Senate, and a House of Representatives that are all constructive on Bitcoin and crypto. What are all of the amazing things that are going to result from that? Will there be a strategic Bitcoin reserve? Will there be stablecoin legislation? And that has become the storyline. I think that starting soon, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, a major storyline will be, oh my gosh, there are all of these giant crypto companies that are going public. And if people can rewind and remember in 2021, April of 2021, when Coinbase went public, that was a huge deal for the industry, a huge deal for investors, a huge deal for the public, seeing that there was a giant company in this, what they otherwise viewed as a backwater cottage industry. And today there are over a dozen companies that are major multi-billion-dollar companies, but they're not public, they're private. And so the public is just not familiar with the fact that this is a huge industry with tons of talented people working in it, big businesses that provide skilled services. And so I think that a major storyline that will kick off in 3 months or 6 months is going to be people realizing how big this industry is and how many giant companies exist as they start to go public.
Why does that matter that much? What's the difference once we have 4, 5, 6, 7 IPOs, private crypto companies listed on the US stock exchange?
I think it matters in 2 ways. I think zoom way out. Most people in crypto, one of the metrics of success, one of the things they want to see is more people doing things in crypto. It could be investing, it could be owning a pudgy penguin, it could be using a DeFi application. They just want to see the world embracing this space and doing things. They want to see adoption. So if if somebody listening to this conversation thinks of the family members that they'll see at the next family gathering, and they think about all the people amongst the family who are not doing something in crypto, you can imagine what's holding them back? They just don't think it's that important. Or maybe they have a concern.
Yeah.
But
That's still the case for many.
most people are just, I don't need to. Why would I focus on this? It doesn't.
There's one here.
Yeah. He doesn't care.
Actually, most of the guys who helped film this month.
Yeah. So we're insufferable, and I appreciate you putting up with the insufferableness.
So we still love you.
So my one of the ways in which I think it's important is it causes people to say, wait a minute, this is serious. This is a big deal. It's another lens through which people can perceive that something is a big deal. I remember when Facebook went public, I was having a conversation with, I was in a taxi having a conversation with the driver, and he said something along the lines of, isn't that just a startup that loses money? His friends were on Facebook, but he didn't think it was a big deal. And I think that there's just a way in which public companies are one of the main things people look at to understand what's important in this world, what's valuable in this world. And so I think it will do a lot to create a sense of familiarity and a sense of importance around the space writ large.
Okay, I have to challenge that. I mean, obviously, I agree with that. The problem we've seen in the past is the big problem in crypto is because all these markets, they are trading 24/7, especially the tokens, right?
Yeah.
People join when there is a lot of mind share.
Sure.
Is usually the wrong time, right? If you look at two examples, Coinbase IPO, mark Bitcoin top. We're not traders here, but people who don't understand crypto and who will join at a certain moment, Coinbase IPO, I'm going to buy Coinbase. I trust stocks more than this Bitcoin thing.
Yep.
Stock down 90%, right?
Sure.
Whatever. Trump launching a meme coin. For me, like the big problem, we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think you were saying something like Bitcoin or crypto is the most popular asset class that is still unpopular.
Yeah.
For some reason, every time people join, it's near some of these big events, probably, let's say later this year, a bunch of IPOs could mark the local top for maybe a few years. I don't know. And the people who join, the only thing that matters to them, most people in the beginning is, am I making money on this shit or not?
Yeah.
And I really feel like the Coinbase IPO or the Trump launch.
Yeah.
Every time we have a big event like that,
Sure.
it ends up hurting the new people because it's kind of the wrong moment.
Yeah.
And if you get hurt, you're going to think that it's shit.
And
Later this year, we might have a bunch of IPOs. People are like, oh, that's awesome. And then it might mark a top for a few months or a few years. And then you have these people who get burned and then kind of like, this is not for me, this shit.
Yeah.
How do we get out of this?
Yeah. Well, so I think that one thing you have to acknowledge is that there's a difference between the launch of something and a moment of excitement where there's substance, and the launch of something, a moment of excitement where there's not substance. The dot-com bubble in technology is famous for a lot of companies launching and a ton of excitement, but it was short on substance. And that didn't mean that technology companies weren't going to be an incredibly important investment category for individuals or set of companies for consumers. So, I think you could disambiguate a company that's been around. Let's take Circle, for instance. Circle going public, having invented a category along with Tether, being at huge scale in terms of revenue, usefulness in the world, doing more volume, I think, now than MasterCard per year. You could separate that from a coin with the name of the president on it and say, okay, sure, maybe both of those things could have moments where they're really exciting to people, but the underlying substance is different, so their durability over time will be different. So I sort of, you just have to march into the future confidently, and I think when there's substance there, of course, nobody can control what a market does week to week or month to month, but what you can control is this something with substance? And I think what makes the IPOs so potentially exciting is that these are companies with huge amounts of substance. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and And I pointed out to him that Coinbase is now worth more than Bank of New York Mellon or State Street. And they're like, wow, that's incredible. And so I'm just saying that public markets, companies being public, it is a familiar measuring stick that people use to understand what is important and valuable in the world. And I think having more companies out in the broad daylight like that will be really good for the space's credibility. And then the other thing I would just say is, the only way to generally have a good experience with investing in almost everything is to have a long-term time horizon. So, you can be a professional trader, and there are some really talented firms, and Bitwise has people here who professionally trade, and then you can try to time, the daily market or the weekly market. But for the vast majority of people, when you're looking at investing in an asset, you're going to be much happier with your experience if your time horizon is not 1 week or 1 month. And I know that that's an annoying comment.
Sorry,
but
that's what we do here. We do annoying
comments. Yeah, we're here to do annoying comments.
that's what we have to do, because people don't understand, or people don't want to understand.
Yeah. So, I think somebody who bought Coinbase in 2021, if they looked at what the company was then, the financials, the performance, I'm not sure. I think that the stock is now up from 2021.
I think they listed at 400, and now it's probably like 2 something. So if you bought it went down to 40, something like that, 30 or 40. I think it listed at 400, something like that. So it's still, yeah.
All right, the audience will have to do the homework on this. But whatever the case, I think people would say, wow, that company is really executed, has grown massively, has done very well. And so, I think that as an investor, that's you look at the things that are in the control of management and the organizations you're investing in.
Which private crypto company would you invest in if it was going public this year, and if you're not invested already?
Gosh, there are so many large crypto companies. Just to rattle it off, there's Circle, there's Kraken, there's Gemini, there's BitGo, there's Anchorage, there's Chainalysis, there's Fireblocks, and I'm sure I'm now egregiously, there's BitGo. If I was making an equity investment, it would depend on the price and the financials. But really talented people at each of those firms, really skilled and useful businesses. So I would look at all of them. We also, as it happens, run a large ETF called the Bitwise Crypto Industry Innovators ETF. The ticker is BITQ, and it's a portfolio of the largest crypto companies. So I own shares of that fund, and the other thing I might do is just rely on that fund to invest in those companies on my behalf, so I don't have to do analysis on all of them. But I'm very optimistic about a lot of the businesses in this space.
You mentioned companies. So let's talk about corporates. You tweeted, people want to save in Bitcoin instead of cash. Increasingly, corporations do too. They have $5 trillion in cash. What's happening on the corporate side?
This is so this space, Kevin, just always finds new ways to captivate all of us, I think. And almost every year there's some new phenomenon that you see and you didn't maybe anticipate, but you feel, wow, that makes sense. So there, corporations are, entities that have rights like people do, and they're entities that want to survive like people do, and they're entities that generate income and then want to transport that income over time like people do. And they have $5 trillion in cash and treasuries. And over the last 4 or 5 years in the US, the value of that cash has dropped 25%. And they're not happy about that in the same way that people are not happy about that. And I think that Michael Saylor has really paved a road to open up the possibility for corporations to consider what people have already considered in mass, which is that the price I pay for saving in Bitcoin is higher volatility, higher uncertainty, what it'll be worth next week. But the reward I get for that is that over a long period of time, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, instead of the story being that my cash lost 25% of its value, the story will be that my value increased, my purchasing power increased. And so I'm willing to accept that short-term volatility for the benefit of transporting these savings and that value over time in a much better way. And so that's resonating with companies. Now there's over 70 companies that own Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I think just recently GameStop announced that they would be buying it on their balance sheet. We launched an ETF. The ticker for that is OwnB, as in Own Bitcoin. That is I think 22 companies that own over 1,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. It's a growing set. 2 new ones just entered, Fold, which went public recently, and BitDeer just entered. And I think you're going to see more and more companies realizing, as people have a long time ago, that the size may vary, but that it makes sense to accept some volatility for the durability that Bitcoin provides in transporting their balance sheets and savings over time. So I think that this trend is just getting started and has a lot of legs.
Are you doing the same at Bitwise?
Yeah, we're a private company, so we've toyed with the idea of talking about it, but we own Bitcoin, yes. And there are a lot of private companies that own Bitcoin.
When Chiefs happens, those two.
Yes, there you go. Yeah,
Of course, have to.
So it's not surprising, right? So
It makes some
there you go. The people who run the companies own Bitcoin. They do that because the dollar loses value. Guess what? At some point, they have the thought that maybe the company, instead of bleeding the value, should also consider that approach. And I think that the hard thing always is, how do you make it acceptable? And I think that Strategy has made it acceptable. And so you're seeing more and more companies doing it.
You said the people who run these companies own Bitcoin. How much of your liquid net worth is in Bitcoin?
Oh, a lot. I have illiquid angel investments, so but I guess that's illiquid. I don't know. I mean, it's north of 30%.
Do you own them in cold storage or not?
I
talked to your colleague Matt, and he owns ETFs only.
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
I own every Bitwise fund, which is a lot of different funds. We have a Bitcoin ETF, an Ethereum ETF. We have the index fund. We have BITQ, which I mentioned. Now own B. We have some alpha solutions that I can't always talk about publicly that I'm invested in. So I have a lot of exposure that way. And it's a great way to have exposure. I also own some spot assets in custodians. I think that from my vantage point, the analogy I once gave to a Bitcoiner was, sometimes you use cash to pay for something, other times you use a wire, sometimes you use a check, sometimes you'll transfer through ACH. Different formats, for the same person, different formats can make sense. And I think, for me, I have a combination of ETFs, private funds, and spot assets, and I think that can make sense.
The people want Bitcoin, the corporations want Bitcoin. What about the USA and the government? What's happening in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, I mean, we spent time in DC recently, and I think that the public is actually following along pretty closely. One of the things I said to one of the senators was, keep communicating, because people are now following this storyline. And if you don't keep communicating, they'll start to imagine all sorts of things. But I think in DC, they think that they're going to get it done so already there's a strategic Bitcoin reserve that was funded with the assets already held by the US government. And then there's an aspiration from lawmakers to build that reserve. And they think that they're going to get it done. And I think that they're going to get it done. And I think that's really exciting. It's, the US has acquired things in the past, assets they thought would be worth owning. And it's pretty rare. And that's why I think it's remarkable that there's not many investment opportunities in the last 50 years that the U.S. government has said, this is worth us owning.
What's an example
of other things that they've owned in the past? Well, certainly gold, oil. They have bought many of the states that are now part of America. And so the fact that in 2025, there's, that's a short list. There are things that the U.S. government has said they want to own before, is the point I'm making, but it's a short list. And so the fact that Bitcoin is now on that list, I think is really remarkable, and everyone has access to it. So, but anyways, I think that there's a lot of motivation, there's a lot of understanding, a lot of enthusiasm, and there's bipartisan support around it. I think it's one of the few bipartisan topics, actually, is do we want to put America in a position of advantage and the American people in a position of advantage around innovation? So I'm very optimistic about it.
But it doesn't mean that Bitcoin is, we can take it for granted. You previously worked for Facebook and now you work for Bitcoin. We all do.
I have a chat with two people who are Bitcoiners, and the name of the chat is Employee of the Week, and they'll joke about who did, which of us who are all employed by Bitcoin did the most work for Bitcoin this week. Yeah. So
how often do you get at the top of the?
I'm always trying, but they're not very charitable with giving it to me. Maybe once.
So you worked before for Facebook. Now you work for Bitcoin. Facebook invests billions of dollars each year into tens of thousands of people, and Facebook has a market cap of $1.5 trillion. Around that, Bitcoin is worth more than Facebook, about $2 trillion. But there are only 40 people, engineers, working for Bitcoin, and they collectively get paid about $8 million a year, you told me. So that's $200,000 per person per year.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem or even the risk with this?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. So, I mean, that was even just what you just set up there, I think most people don't realize. So, as with any new thing in the world, there's a communication challenge. So when Uber was first invented, people said it's like a taxi on your phone. And that helped new people start to understand what it was. But of course, Uber is not the same as a taxi. You don't have to take out your credit card. You can see reviews of the driver. You don't have to hail it with your hand. You can summon an Uber to wherever you are. So it's an app for taxis. Is like a decent way of introducing Uber to someone, but it's not a perfect way of introducing Uber to someone. So I think with Bitcoin, the decent way of introducing it to people that we've all agreed on is digital gold. But it's not perfect. And one of the ways in which it's not perfect is that nobody needs to maintain the chemistry of gold. So I think that saying digital gold correctly confers there's a scarce supply. It could be useful as an investment. It doesn't generate revenues. It's not a corporation. And that's all productive. But one slightly unproductive thing is it makes it sound like there was an immaculate conception and, Bitcoin's chemistry was birthed and now it's just, in reality, it's an open source project. And there's this beautiful harmony between the main code base, which is Bitcoin Core, and the miners who download and run the code base and run the network. But the code base needs to be maintained. And that work is done really, I mean, it's an incredible group of people, the 40 Bitcoin Core contributors you mentioned, and there's 5 or 6 maintainers, by people who are really passionate about the role that Bitcoin can play in the world. And choose, many of them have chosen, for instance, not to work at Google and make a lot more money and have a much simpler life. And instead they make a lot less money, and people attack them online, and Craig Wright, was suing many of them in court. But they think that Bitcoin is a really important thing in the world. So I think many of them are very inspiring people. I think that because much of the world has been introduced to Bitcoin as digital gold, just a lot of people don't realize that this is a component of Bitcoin, and that it needs to be fostered. So how is it fostered? Well, first you have these 40 or so people who I think are sort of very nobly doing really important work. They're able to do that by and large through grants or employment by a few organizations that support them. So there's Chaincode Labs, which is extraordinary. There's Brink, there's OpenSats, there's Human Rights Foundation, and there's local hosts out here. So there's a few of these that have sprung up. Their benefactors are people like Wences Casares, which is public, or Mark Casey's public, Jack Dorsey's public. And so people have donated to these organizations, and then these organizations either make grants to individuals or they'll bring them onto payroll. But again, there's no Bitcoin corporate treasury. So where does the money come from? And it comes from those donations. So and it's really important because people need to make money if we want them to spend time securing Bitcoin Core, the code base. So with the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF, which I think we've talked about before, we said, okay, our job is to help people participate in the opportunity set here and to navigate the space for them. So some of them will want to understand this, but others just won't have time to understand this. So we donate 10% of the gross profits from that fund to support open source developers. And they can feel really proud of that if they come to understand this. And by choosing BITB, they're supporting this element of the space. Or they can not worry about it because it's our job as Bitwise to set them up for success. And this is a component of that. I would encourage anyone to learn a little bit about those organizations: Chaincode Labs, Brink, OpenSats, Localhost, Human Rights Foundation. I think that you'll find them really inspiring. And there are many communities around crypto and around Bitcoin. Some of them are idealistic. Some of them are builders who want to make things that people love. Some of them are traders who just want to make money. Some of them there's a whole host of people. These people are really, I think, really admirable. They're stewards, they're builders, they want to see the world be different. They're not focused on what the price is today versus tomorrow. So I think the way that you framed it up at the beginning is sort of a good framing to realize just how sort of crazy the state of play is, that Bitcoin is worth $2 trillion. It's worth more than Facebook. Facebook has over 10,000 engineers maintaining and building those services. And Bitcoin has about 40 core developers looking after the code base for that $2 trillion network. So that doesn't mean there needs to be 10,000. There probably shouldn't be 10,000. But right now, the funding of that work is sort of left up to chance. Will you donate next year? Will I donate? Will the listener donate? And if
first, you know that there's a problem, right?
First, you need to know a little bit about this all. And what if we all decide not to donate? What happens? And I should also mention Spiral, which is a division of Square, Block, formerly known as Square. Spiral, led by Steve Lee, also contributes to this work. So there's great people out there. It's just that I think there's a lot of people who own Bitcoin and want to see Bitcoin do well. There's a very small number of people who are aware of this element of it. And it doesn't need to be everyone, but I think it's something that we just want to continue to see be healthy. And of course, Bitwise tries to support that.
Bitwise raised $70 million. Why?
Sometimes you stun me with these questions, Kevin. It's a good question. Somehow nobody has asked me that version of the question. From who, what are you going to use it for? But why? Our aspiration with Bitwise is that public blockchains are compelling new computing platform, like mobile was, like the internet was. Public blockchains are allowing beautiful new things to sprout up and be invented. And they have liquid assets embedded in them, and that means that there's an opportunity for investors to own those liquid assets, digital assets. And like most other asset classes, our view is that a lot of investors, they're busy, and they want to be able to leverage the benefit of an alternative asset manager, be it in us introducing products like OwnB and BITQ, where we do the portfolio management, or in some cases, wealth management firms, family offices, institutional investors, where they can call us up and have us give them commentary on something or do analysis for them on something. So that's the aspiration that's what Bitwise is here to do. And I think that there's so much to do right now. So we're now increasing the headcount of the firm by 30%. Today already, we operate across. We have offices in San Francisco, New York, and London, and we operate across the U.S. and Europe, which is quite large. We serve thousands of firms, and I can never get an estimate on the number of individuals who own Bitwise products, but I suspect it's north of 100,000. We have 30 investment solutions. We want to do more. We have ETPs, which a lot of people are very familiar with. We also have alpha solutions. So we'll do for very large institutional holders who have, say, 250 Bitcoin or 1,000 Bitcoin, we can run separately managed accounts on that we've had people asking us about. Can you help me generate yield on my Bitcoin through a fund? And a variety of things there. And then the third, so there's market access, or the ETPs for Bitwise. There's alpha, and then there's also on-chain solutions. So we're one of the largest staking providers of Ethereum. That's not an ETF. That's not a fund. That's non-custodial on-chain staking for people who have the actual Ethereum and they just want a relationship with Bitwise and a best-in-class implementation of that. So there's a lot to do. I think that investors who invest in companies say, I think that there's a lot of merit to what Bitwise is building. And so I suppose in some sense, that's the why. And it enables us to continue to build more and more and do more and more for clients. And there's a lot to do right now.
There's a lot to do right now. What's the day you can look back and say, that's it, we've made it with Bitwise?
Well, I'll tell you what. One of the impressions that I took away from Facebook is that that there is no such moment. I remember at Facebook, which was doing tens of billions of dollars of super high gross margin revenue, growing maybe 60% year over year. I mean, just an astronomical rate, in a league of their own, an incredible management team, incredible people, a historically large user base. At the time, people were saying, "Oh my gosh, it's bigger than the Catholic religion. There's more Facebook users than there are Catholics in the world." All of these things, and there were people at Facebook who were worried about not running out of money, not people not wanting to use the service. They were just worried about the rate of growth of the revenue slowing from 50% to 40%. So I say that to suggest that I think in business, there's always something that you're solving, and that's what makes it so captivating. And it's just what you're solving changes. So I think for Bitwise, I feel, captivated by the things for us to solve. What product should we launch next? We actually have a bunch of very new products coming. I don't know when this will come out, but next week that are going to, they're ETFs that will deliver income to investors by capitalizing on the volatility of the space. So that's a fascinating thing. We said there's an opportunity around the volatility of crypto, and we can provide access to that to investors. So there's always these problems to solve, things to think through. But at the same time, I'm grateful on a pretty regular basis because of the people working here. We're hiring right now, and the incredible people who want to work here, the clients who are deciding to work with us. So I just think it's a continuous thing. I don't know if you'll ever feel like like you finally done it. Yeah.
If you're a true entrepreneur.
Yeah.
No
when will you feel that way?
With a podcast like that, maybe the day I interview Trump.
Yeah.
Or Elon, or both, the same day.
Mm.
The other day I interviewed Chris Larson from Ripple and Tolly from Solana, and I felt nothing, to be honest. I felt nothing. I was like, this is just, okay, what's next?
Another day. Yeah.
Like literally, I don't know why, it's a bit sad. I mean, I had some cookies in the evening to celebrate.
There you go.
Steak, but like,
there you go.
I was like, man, this is just normal. Like, what?
Yeah.
I should aim for that, right? So after Trump and Elon, there's probably going to be other things to do, for sure.
Of course.
There are always other things to do.
You're interviewing all the best people in the space now, so you're getting used to it, it sounds like.
Maybe. It's a bit sad I should be so excited, but it's just like, it's what needs to be done, right? Otherwise, I'm not improving. So I'm just thinking like, I'm already thinking now, my next US trip is, I take that to the next dimension. And I'm thinking, who should I interview the same day to take this into the next dimension? Satoshi and Vitalik. And Vitalik the same day.
Yeah.
No. You took my role, the role of interviewer, and you interviewed Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple. Why did you do that?
These why questions, they really get me, Kevin. It's fun to think about. It's probably why people love your show. I think one element of what I aspire for in the space is I wish people would just spend less time throwing mud at each other and respect when talented people are working hard on their vision of the future, and to support everyone who's working hard on a vision of the future, and to be collegial with one another, and to make, we both love Pudgy Penguins, to spread good vibes across the metaverse, to make the default energy of this space high energy and a positive energy, because I think that's what attracts everything that the space wants. And if you don't like a project, or if you love one project and you hate their competitor, you hate something else, then the way I think for people to act is to focus on the merits of the thing that you love. And I think sometimes people focus on the thing that they don't like and spend a bunch of time saying things about that. So anyways, I was excited because I think that there's a ton of great things to say about Brad. They've really but the recent one is that they really took on the mantle of pushing back against the SEC's egregious enforcement, which has impacted Uniswap, it's impacted Consensus, it's impacted Coinbase, and not everyone can fight back. And they were the first to fight back, and they just recently prevailed. And maybe you don't like XRP, the token, or maybe you don't like RLUSD, the stablecoin, or maybe you love those things. But in any case, you can appreciate the effort and role. So I was really excited, both because I think very highly of Brad, but also to try to sort of model how people should behave in the space, which is be rooting for the success of the space. Yeah.
I'm trying to do the same here.
I bet you are.
Think like how, especially when someone is not liked publicly, at least on Twitter, right? You have all these haters. I'm like, I want to go and talk to this person to see for myself first. Right? Oh, Polkadot is a scam. Okay, I'm gonna go talk to Gavin Wood. He's a fucking genius. You guys all talking about like have you spent 2 or 3? I mean, it was a 3-hour podcast to listen to this guy. Like, guys, come on, he invented the EVM and Solidity.
Right.
What the fuck are you talking about? Right.
Say so silly to
Same with Ripple. I was like, okay, I hope I can interview Brad one day. I went to interview Chris Larson. That people is less public, right? He built 2 big businesses before, did an IPO, super pro-consumer. Like, what the fuck are people talking about?
Yeah.
Like, really? I don't know. And he's a good person, family-oriented. They've been fighting, they've been spending 12, 13, 14 years in the banking system to try to educate these people who don't want to hear about them, right?
Yep.
They're like doing the hard work that...
And by the way, I've had endurance, which we talked about earlier in the conversation.
Like, how can you might not like the project, but these guys have been doing this for 12, 13, 14 years.
Yeah.
Like, how can you be saying anything negative or dismiss people as scammers?
It's not even that. It's attacking them. You don't like them. There's something that they're doing that you don't like. That's fine. But there's probably a lot of listeners in crypto who love Elon Musk, and then they see people burning Teslas. And they think, how stupid is that? Well, just keep in mind that, don't fall victim to that same dynamic. Elon Musk is a polarizing figure. People love him and they hate him. But the right thing is, to focus on I think the things that you want to see succeed, and not to spend energy attacking things that that you don't think have as much merit.
And if you don't like something, just bet with your money, right?
Yeah.
Invest in what you like, and just don't invest in what you don't like instead of.
Yeah. And I think maybe just to sort of to tie this away from just being a stylistic preference towards why is this good for anyone who, for instance, people who just own Bitcoin, because like it or not, the world sees a relationship between all the stuff. They call it crypto. And if crypto is a confusing and nasty and unprofessional industry, then everything is damaged by that reputation. Companies will be less interested to build services and integrations. People will be less interested to have a conversation about it. And conversely, if it's this, the way I think in some respects people view AI today, which is it's exciting, it's fast paced, there's a lot of things being built. There's no way that they're all useful. There's no way that everyone who's building an AI service is a good person. Some of them are probably stupid, in fact. But the view people have of AI is that there's a lot happening. It could do great things for the economy. It could do great things for productivity, for people. There are some things that are a little scary, and those need to be talked about. But there's a sense that a dialogue can be had, and that's I think what the way you want crypto to be viewed, rather than it being viewed as this dark, nasty place. So even if you just own Bitcoin and you think everything else is a distraction, you still are better off if it's not a dark, nasty place.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hunter. Thank you for what you're doing for this space, being the good steward. I'm trying to copy you in the media side, actually. Like I never really kind of thought too much about like what I'm trying to do, but then I like to tell people like I'm trying to be the good steward on the PR side for the good actors, and without having biases, right? And being optimistic. Thank you for being so optimistic all the time. And obviously, thank you for being an early believer in when shift happens.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
For supporting us on this journey to make crypto look more credible to the outside world.
You're a superstar, and I'll just say I'm grateful for the work you do. As you can imagine from everything I've said, I think that there are so many talented people, so many exciting visions of the future, and we sort of have to break through the noise and get those stories told. And I think that you do a better job of that than anyone else.
Amazing. Thanks.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm blushing.
Yeah.